A lot of you have asked me, what are those roles you keep talking about? So, I've decided to make a video about all 10 roles in Rainbow Six Siege, and I'm gonna explain them to you. Starting off with the first one in attack, the entry fragger. So if you're that entry, of course you have a good shot, you got those clean mechanics, the good peeking, and getting that map control. By getting these initial gunfights when it comes to taking area, of course you could just take a gunfight outside the building, sitting on the roof and then waiting and say, oh yeah, I got that kill. No, you need to have those in your entry engagements, when you're actually fighting for area that help your team win a round. Also, you need to understand that most of the time you should be taking 50-50 gunfights, so most of the time you'll have a drone in front of you or someone giving you info that there is an enemy somewhere in that area. So you're coming in from this way and the roamers are coming in from that way, and somewhere in the middle ground you're gonna have that gunfight. But one of the hardest things for entries is, when do they slow down? Just like Bosco said on the 6 on 6 podcast from Canadian and Intero.
Another big thing about the entry that I don't think people really talk about or think about is, like, you gotta know when to slow down. People are going in with like Ash and they got a drone in front of them. It's easy to like get carried away when you pick up a couple kills and you start getting map control. Like, you gotta know when to slow down, just hold your position and like start playing it more passive while your team comes in and sets up and gets ready for execute. I think that's also a very important thing, because like a lot of times you'll see an entry go in and get a couple kills and then like maybe they'll get a little too aggressive on something and then lose their life. It hurts the execute and the setup. I think that's another important thing with entry, is just knowing like when to hit the brakes.
And I agree, you need to be disciplined enough to say, oh, I'm gonna stop, I'm gonna wait for my team now. Of course, as an entry, it isn't that bad if you die, but you always wanna stay alive and don't risk your life in an unnecessary way. Also, when following a drone, make sure to keep 3 to 5 meters of distance, oftentimes not more, as most of the times if you give it 10 to 15 meters, the info the drone gave you is already outdated and the enemy could have already moved into a different position. Moving on to the next role, we have the Flex. As it already says in the name, Flex, he is quite flexible, but he also has to fill a lot of gaps from other players. For example, if your entries are running an Ashe or in Sophia, he's obviously not gonna bring another soft breacher. He's gonna look more into either nades, a Flores, maybe even a hard breacher or hard breach charges, so you can open that extra set of hatches. So you always wanna aim for filling the gaps that your team needs. As a Flex player, you often switch up between having to play a sort of second, third entry and second/third support. So it might be that you're just trying to refrag your entry or build up crossfires with your entry, or even when you play the hard breacher, stay alive as long as possible and get those hatches open so that your hard breacher then doesn't have to rotate all around the map. But with that, you're really not limited on operators, but please don't take Black Pit and just sit on the roof for 2 minutes straight. So yeah, Flex is one of these easier roles, but you have to do a lot of communicating with your team, and if you don't communicate properly, you're just simply not gonna be really playing the Flex role to its full extent. Next up, we have the support players. The support players are basically the ones that always play for the objective, if it is getting the bomb down or droning you in. So you need to understand that you really need to be alive. Your main job with droning is so important that before you die, you should have already lost both your drones. And no, please don't just drive your drone into sight and get them destroyed and be like, oh yeah, I don't have drones anymore, I can now frag, right? No, that's not correct. You have to drone smart. You have to find a way around of enemies. For example, don't jump with drones, as it makes a ton of noise. But yeah, I understand that that doesn't always work in ranked. So once you've actually used your drones, used your gadgets, then you're basically just a gun, as long as you're not carrying the diffuser. That's the point where you can actually go and be like, oh yeah, I can get this frag now, because there's nothing more to lose. You've lost your drones, you've lost your utility. Once everything is gone, is get a kill. Because that's the next thing up on the list. Droning done, use your utility. Now is the part where you got to use your gun and finally go for that kill. Next up, we have the Flankwatch. Flankwatch is often called to be the most boring role, as you're that nomad, that gridlock, just holding flanks, sitting on camps, and managing your teammates' camp positions. While it does seem to be boring, it is one of the most important roles, as otherwise you will get flanked every round, so that if you make a mistake, it comes in at a big cost. As the Flankwatch, you should always have one cam in pocket. In drone phase, you probably should leave your cam outside, because you're going to need at least one cam, most of the times even two. Positioning wise, you shouldn't be too far away from your position cams, as if you see an enemy on your cam and you're like, oh yeah, there is an enemy, get off the cam, bam, bam, he's dead, get back onto the cam. So you need to be really patient, you can't be ADHD, just wanting to run in every event, getting those kills. That just isn't your job as a Flankwatch. But most ranked players won't flank at the 20-second mark, as the average ranked player just isn't smart and he's gonna flank at like 2 minutes or 1 minute 30. So the role isn't quite as boring as it is in competitive Rainbow Six. But as a Flankwatch, you also need to manage your teammates' cams, or if your teammate is dead, to tell him, oh yeah, hold this cam now. So let's say you see there's a cam missing on, for example, blue stairs on Chalet. So you're gonna tell your teammate, we need a cam there. Or if he isn't reacting, yo Ash, I need a flank cam blue stairs. Managing your dead teammates to get on cams is super important, because you can't be sitting there in a 2v5. Oh yeah, he's flanking now, he's flanking now, 1v5 and you lost the round. So you need to be communicative in order for the role to actually work for you. Next up and last for the attacker side is probably the hardest role. It is the IGL, the in-game leader. In order to be an IGL, you need to be super vocal. You need to understand the game, you need to understand your teammate's position, and actually actively manage them to go, oh yeah, open breach, oh yeah, go there, oh yeah, bam, bam, bam. In order for you to be a good IGL, you need to understand all the roles in Rainbow Six Siege, because you need to put all the other 4 roles together and combine them to something that it actually works for you to win the round. You also need to be authoritative. You need to be able to say, guys, we're going there. Don't be, guys, can we open breach? No, say, guys, we need to open breach now. But you also need to understand that if you, for example, tell your flex or your entry, go there and take the area. Don't just say, oh yeah, go into the room, check this corner, da. They should know how to play the role. So you need to trust your teammates to actually play their role properly. You go Chalet, you enter library, and you're gonna meet up at, for example, mezzanine, catwalk, however you wanna call it. Then we're going to breach the wall. So you understand now, oh yeah, I'm gonna take this, clear everything, and then hit my brakes on mezzanine and hold the piano door so the enemies can swing out. Of course, I understand that not everyone is smart enough to actually understand how roles work, but that's just how ranked is, unfortunately. You can't teach people who don't want to be taught. You just need to live with that and be like, yep, we move on. It is what it is. The hardest thing to do apart from managing your teammates is to call for the execute, because you need to find the right gap and the right moment to say, guys, we're hitting side now. So if there's 4 enemies offside, of course you're gonna scream to your teammates, go inside, 4 offside. If there's 2 offside and 3 onside, and you're only in a 4 vs 3 situation, you need to find the right gap. You need to find the right path into side, because you don't want to run at those 3 people. Because even though you have the greater manpower, they have the advantage of being the defender side. They have the advantage of setting up their angles, and you need to force into them. You see, it is a very hard role, but it is very rewarding if you're actually good at it. So now we're gonna move on to the defense side. Starting off with the first defender role, the roamers. The roamers are the same thing as the entries in attack. As a roamer, you're running around the map trying to find those entry engagements and slow down the enemy's attacks. You need to create the most amount of pressure, but you also need to be able to say, oh, I'm falling off now. I took 30 seconds off the enemies just on their entry point. You fall back, maybe closer to side, maybe closer to another teammate, and then team up with him, and then try and do that again. As a roamer, you don't need to stay alive for the whole round. It just won't work like that. If you're a roamer, there is a high risk of you dying, just like it is in attack with the entries. Also, 1-for-1 trades are not as bad as they are in attack, as a 4 vs 4 is way easier to win if you're on the defender side, but you should always try and stay alive and don't risk your life unnecessarily. As most of the time you won't have that much of a setup, you can also go and hunt camps in prep phase so that the enemies will take even longer to enter the building. Just like in attack, if you got the man advantage, don't go and peek, instead play with your teammates. Also, just like in attack, we have the flex. The flex is probably one of the easiest roles, as operators are super flexible for him. From a Goyo to a Oryx to a Melusi and a Bandit, you can play basically everything as long as it seems useful to you and your teammates. You're also gonna be somewhat of a second/third roamer and somewhat of a second/third support, which is gonna be that perfect middle point. Communication is again key for the role, as when your teammates are asking, can you do this? You're gonna say, yeah, I can, I'm coming this, and there. You're gonna be setting up crossfires with your roamers, but you're also gonna be sitting on site, helping out the smoke, helping out the echo. You're just always that middle point. The support. The support is very similar, again, to the attack. You don't want to die early, as you are a key operator that is very important in the late game. Let's see him a Esther with his Evilize or a Smoke with his Smoke Grenades. Your role involves a lot about being on camps and giving intel for your flags, your roamers, and your lurkers. Think of it like this: your roamer just can't go in a row and be like, oh yeah, let me check camps. Oh, there is an enemy. I'm gonna sprint across the map now. At this time, he's already long gone, or your roamer got caught off guard. Instead, you should be the person saying, yo, Vigil, there is a guy entering small tower. And then you have live information on him. He's still there. He's on ping. He's peeking you now. The support is a really easy role to play for the first 2 minutes. But after that, that is where the actual action for you starts. You can go crazy in late game with that smoke shotgun or the SMG or the Aldo of Maestro. The support shines in the late game. Second last role is the Lurker. The Lurker is really similar to the Roamer, as its main objective is to catch the enemies off guard and always like snake behind them, with the main difference being, while a Roamer is like super active at the start, the Lurker is more active towards the mid game. As the Roamer is there to make sure that the enemies are not taking room, the Lurker is there to take back. The Lurker is the one who's gonna flank the enemies, but you have to rely a lot on information on intel, because without that you're basically playing blindfold, as you just don't know where the enemies are or where they will be. The most common problem I see with Lurkers, in especially ranked, is they're not patient enough. You gotta wait for the right moment to strike and catch someone off not looking at you. As a Lurker, you should know map layouts, default entry routes, and also be communicative with your team. The IGL in defense isn't really a IGL. He is more there to call, we are doing this defense, we're going to do that strat. As in defense, you don't actually need to shuffle around with your players a lot, because you're gonna have a lot of set positions. The main thing you're gonna do as a supporter is you're gonna communicate with your roamers, yo guys, come back to side, we need you. Or tell them, yo, slow down, we got them an advantage of 1 minute left. You're also gonna be calling for them, yo, Vigil, Jaeger, go flank now, they're full focused on us. This was my video about all 10 roles in Rainbow Six Siege. If you think you understand the roles just 1% more, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to my channel, as it would help me out massively. Until the next video, bye.